Hi everyone. Sorry I'm a little bit late. This morning got a little crazy. We had a little accident with baby O, which is another video for another day. But everyone's good, everyone's safe. Both the boys are napping, so we are good. So today I'm just hopping on to kind of talk about, did I even just see that little feather? To talk about sleeping in a hotel with kids, which can be so daunting for a lot of parents and just feels like you don't even want to take a vacation. You don't want to leave your house because you're not sure what it's going to look like while your little one is sleeping away from their kind of norm and their comfort zone. So I totally get it. But I just wrote a blog post on it recently, and with everything that's opening up, I know it's like you really want to get out and kind of get back to normal, but you also want to make sure that everyone is safe and healthy and all that good stuff. So if anyone is thinking of traveling, even if you're just staying at a family member's house or something like that, all of these tips will still apply. So I'm just gonna kind of run down, and then at the end I'll post the link in the comments. So if anyone does want to check out the full blog post, then you'll be able to do that. Or if you have any questions, you can always just pop them in the comments too. So the first tip is that you don't want to overschedule your time when you're away. That's super important, because thinking about when you go on vacation, you want to do all the things. You want to visit with family. You want to go visit this place. You want to go shop in this mall. You want to do this. You want to do that. It might be a little bit different now because depending on how many things are open, if you have to, they're limiting the amount of people going in at a time. This may not be as much of an issue as it would be in the past, but it's definitely something to still consider. So when you're on vacation, people usually, you get tired more easily because everything is a little bit off. So keep that in mind for your little ones. They still definitely need a time to rest and a time to nap. So scheduling that into your day is going to be crucial. So if they typically nap 2 times a day, they typically nap 2 times a day, make sure you have 2 solid nap times in there for them to rest. It may be a nap on the go, in the stroller, maybe that you're driving in the car somewhere, but just make sure that you kind of think about, okay, these are our plans for the day. This is where we'll be going. This is what we'll be doing. These are the times that I will have the opportunity for my child to nap. So that's number 1. You just definitely, you want to schedule that in. You don't want to have an overtired, cranky baby, because that's not going to be a fun vacation at all. So definitely don't overschedule. The second tip is thinking about where your child will sleep. This is also a big one too, because if you typically don't have a child that sleeps in your bed or in your room, and you do on vacation, that is kind of a recipe for a disaster. So quick story, we painted Owen's bedroom maybe a couple months ago. It was last summer, maybe in August. Julian was already here, but we moved the pack and play into our bedroom and had him sleep in our room. And I thought, he's a great independent sleeper, he'll be fine. No, it was the worst night of our lives. My dad and John had painted the bedroom, I don't know, probably earlier that afternoon, but just because of the paint fumes and stuff, I didn't feel comfortable with him sleeping in there at night. So I put him to bed at his normal 7 o'clock time. He went in, didn't make a peep. I went in at 9:30 to nurse the baby and put him to bed and go to bed myself. At that point, I think he was only a month, maybe. And I hear a mama, and I was like, what is this kid still doing up 2.5 hours later? So that was out. We already started off on a bad foot, but then it just got worse at night. He had never slept in the pack and play, so he felt like it was a trampoline, and he was just standing up and jumping and just kept yelling, jump, jump, jump. And this is probably midnight. And I was like, no. So John was like, let's just bring him in the bed. He'll fall asleep. I was like, he's not going to fall asleep. Brought him in the bed. I'm nursing the baby. He's 2 hands on my back, jumping on my back. I put this story in my stories before, so it might sound familiar to some of you, but it was literally the worst night of our entire lives. So let's see. I have the phone turned sideways, so I have to turn to see the comments. Traveling soon. Yes. So I will help you. Because if you have the pack and play like right where they can see you, then that's not going to be great, because he was just overexcited. He was like, yes, I'm in this room with mom and dad. I've never done this before. But you want to kind of use that pack and play to separate them. So if you can have a partition, a wall, if there's a large walk-in closet, if there's even the bathroom at a hotel, they're pretty much soundproof. They're usually pretty large. So if you can do that, that's perfect. You want to make it as close to his home as possible. So if your child typically doesn't see you when they're falling asleep, you don't want them to see you when they're falling asleep in a new environment. If you haven't looked into the slumber pod, please look into it. It is like a miracle product. The two women that created it knew what they were doing, because it's amazing. I'm definitely, I just got 2 of them, so I'm going to be doing a video on them soon. We're actually going to film it tonight, and then I'll pop it up soon, and I'll put in my stories when I do. But definitely consider looking into the slumber pod, and if you do grab one, use code BABYO and I for a little discount. So yes, where your child will sleep, again, replicate as much as you can their home environment. So if they're not in your room, they can't see you typically, bring sheets and blankets and everything that they typically would have, loveys, all that good stuff. So it's just as much the same as possible. But that's a big one. If they don't typically sleep in your bed and they don't typically see you when they're falling asleep, make sure that that's still the same once you leave. What will they sleep in? That's a great question. Pack and play, bassinet. Typically hotels have like mini cribs or things like that they can bring up to your room. Definitely ask to see a picture of it before just saying, oh, yep, great, pop one in our room. Because sometimes, like, depending on what they have, the slots might be a little bit too big. Children can like fit in a hand or an arm through. They might not fit your child. Depending on the age of your child, they might be a little bit too small. We got one when John was in a wedding when Owen was born. He was literally like a week old, but John was in the wedding. It was his best friend. And it was his best friend, and then his brother is also married to his best friend's sister. So like it was all of our family. We had to go to the wedding. So we had them bring a pack and play and have it set up in the room ready for us. So we get there with a 1-week-old baby, and they have the pack and play, but it doesn't have the newborn insert. So it's all the way down to the floor. So I could not get him all the way in there and all the way out safely because it was so far down. So just kind of think about that. If it's depending on the age of your child, on the size of your child, how they typically fall asleep. I know a lot of people, if you haven't worked with me and you are still holding your child, rocking your child to put them to sleep and then laying them down, if it's a really far drop, that is not going to go well for you. So keep all of that in mind when thinking about what they will sleep in. If they do typically sleep in a toddler bed at home, then I do in the blog post have some resources for what to grab to kind of replicate that toddler bed when you're away as well. The next part is what you should pack. So again, I talked about this a little bit earlier, but everything that you would typically have in your whole bedtime routine. So think about literally start to finish. What do you need when you're doing your bedtime routine? Starting with bath. So if you typically do a bath or you're going to be gone a couple of days and you're going to do a bath time, think about what you have for a bath. Maybe it's certain toys, shampoos, things like that. For actual sleep, think about their bedtime routine. You go into their room, you put on lotion, you have nighttime diapers maybe, you sleep sack, books, pajamas, sheets, loveys, pacifiers, monitors, cameras, I'm trying to read the list, sheets, toothpaste, toothbrush, everything. If they're using an okay to wake clock, bring that. Literally just think from when I start thinking it's almost bedtime to putting my child in their crib or bassinet, what are all of the things that I use? And just go through, pack them all. You can't pack too much. I'm an overpacker. My motto is, you can't pack too much. So definitely, if you think you're going to need it, bring it, because you don't want to be stuck in that, oh, where's my blank? And you're like, 3,000 miles away on the other side of the country in your bed. That's where it is. So definitely just plan ahead, make out a full list one night, kind of a couple of days before you go. Write down everything. Every time you touch something in your bedtime routine, write it down. So okay, this is the full list of exactly what I'll need going forward. And the last one, and the biggest question, it's not the last one, but it's the biggest question, is what if my child cries? That is a huge, huge concern of parents when you're away. I just had started with a family, and before we started, they had gone on a trip to visit her in-laws. And mom was really worried that, what sleep would look like when they were away, and how her family would kind of think about this child. You want them to be sleeping well, eating well, the best they can be. So they see this great example of the child that you're raising. And you don't, when you meet, not when you meet new people, but when you see family and friends, you want everything to go great and smoothly. And sometimes it's hard to do for little ones when they're in a new place. So thinking about crying, if your child's on a really good sleep routine, they may just be a little bit confused and lost when they're going to bed in a new location, in a new setting. So just keep that in mind. There may be a little bit of crying when they initially go down for bed, but as long as they fall asleep independently, then they shouldn't have a problem if they wake up in the middle of the night, because they'll know where they are. They'll remember where they are. They'll know where they are and be able to put themselves back to sleep. So if there is a little bit of crying initially, that's okay. You want the crying at that end, because typically it's going to be earlier. Children should be falling asleep between 6 and 8. If you're in a hotel, not many other people are going to be sleeping between 6 and 8. So if they hear a baby cry at between 6 and 8, ideally about 7 o'clock, and if they hear a child at 3 a.m., they're going to be more upset about the child that's crying at 3 a.m. than they are the baby that's crying at 7 p.m. So definitely focus on having them fall asleep independently, because that will decrease the night wakings. If they do wake up a lot during the night and are crying for a continuous amount of time, you typically have about 15 minutes before people really start getting upset. So if in that time you're not able to calm your child, you may have to kind of pull in some tactics that you wouldn't typically do. Hold them, rock them, feed them back to sleep so that you can still get some sleep, and it will be quiet for the rooms around you. And that's okay. When you're traveling, things get a little bit different, things get a little bit off, but just know, you yourself have to know that this is not a routine that we're going to continue with when we get back home. Do your best to keep everything the same, but if you do have to break the rules occasionally, then that's okay. As soon as you get back home, you hop right back on your schedule, and if they cry a little bit more, adjusting back to your normal routine because you developed some different habits while you were away, that's okay. It's just kind of par for the course. And then lastly, just be aware of the temperature in their room. You want to keep it between that 60 and 72. I know hotel rooms are typically freezing when I go, and I can never figure out how to adjust the temperature. So just keep that in mind. Maybe pack an extra sleep, like a fleece sleep sack, or if they're a little bit older, an extra blanket just to combat that. Consider long car rides, time changes, things like that when you're going. I have a whole travel kit that's available on my website too, if you're going to be leaving time zones, going to a different country, things like that. And definitely, last point, try to check in before bedtime. You don't want to be just strolling in, trying to frantically set up a pack and play, throw up a slumber pod, all that good stuff before bedtime. You want them to be able to explore the room, run around, have some fun, look at everything, and then be able to wind down and go to sleep. Because if you're kind of trying to rush everything and get it done at the same time, you're going to be frazzled and overstimulated. They're going to be frazzled and overstimulated. It's not going to lead to good sleep. So, thanks for joining me, everyone. I will pop the link to the blog post in the comments. And if you have any questions from there, you can always feel free to DM me, or I think you can still comment on the video once it's posted in my stories. So have a great weekend. Bye.